parents walked through the door. And I was just kind of confused at that point. And then I hear him start to talk about kind of hard work, showing up every day. And then it kind of set in that, I was thinking he was probably going to put me on scholarship. And you just kind of start to feel all these waves of emotions start to build up. And, he eventually said, we're going to put Wes van Beck on scholarship here at the University of Houston. And all my teammates kind of, bum rushed me and, were hugging me, giving me high fives and telling me congratulations. And, there's no better feeling in the world when you, work for something for so long.
Wes, thank you for being here today. Thank you for taking the time to talk to all of us. Also, thank you to everybody who is over here, spending time with us, listening to what Wes is going to talk about his life and give us some, I think, really deep dives into what it means to be a basketball player, but also a human being. And maybe to start off, how are you doing?
First off, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. We just got a big win a few days ago. Tough win on the road is always nice. And coach was nice enough to give us a few days off. So I'm well rested and I'm ready to have this conversation with you.
Maybe to start things off, how did you get into basketball at all?
Yeah, so I grew up in a relatively big family of 6. I have 3 siblings, younger sister, and then 2 younger twin brothers. And we were a very sports-oriented family. Not only basketball, we played baseball, we swam, played some tennis in the backyard and stuff like that. So sports was always something that was, a big part of our lives. I can, go back and remember playing in the backyard with my brothers from the ages, to when I could walk until, I just left for high school to go to college. So basketball has always been something for me that's always been there. My dad was a college referee, and we would always watch college games and watch him referee. He was my youth coach growing up. So I think that's where the love really developed for me, pretty early on in my life.
Usually in the States, the system is way different than in Germany. Like in Germany, you gotta go to a club or some organization and do sports there. In the States, it's more like you do a bunch of different sports. In school, it's required. You can get a taste of baseball, basketball, football, whatever, and you're kind of required to do that. But I guess also when it then comes to high school and these higher levels, because even high school in the United States is kind of professional if you compare it to other countries. So how was the experience for you? How did you decide I go into basketball or these other sports? Or
Yeah, well, first off, I think you nailed it. I think, like I said, growing up, I had a lot of different experiences with different types of sport, different movements, different types of actions and stuff for the brain. I think that's great for young kids to just try to absorb as many different styles as possible. I think that makes for a better athlete overall. Going back to my high school days, I think, the thing that really made me choose basketball in the end was kind of the influence that it had in my early days, going back to my dad, going back to those games, watching him play. When you're a child, you're very kind of influenced, whether you know it or not, by your parents. And, my parents are 2 of my favorite people in the world. They're probably 2 of the most inspirational people for me. I really feel like I was lucky enough to have 2 people who were very supportive and very loving, in anything that I wanted to do. And I don't ever take that for granted because I know that you're not able to choose your parents. And so for me, I was lucky enough to have two people who guided me, supported me, were always there for me. Not even talking about games, but just in life, if I had a bad day, if I had a good day, you know, they were always there for support.
But if I recall correctly, you said that your baseball coach, I think, said that you should choose baseball instead of basketball because you're too short and you're not going to be successful in that area. And I mean, we now know that you kind of made it so far, but what was that being at such a young age and somebody tells you, you rather don't do it? I mean, it doesn't matter how much you love it, but just go in the other direction because you're not capable of that.
No, I was definitely a late bloomer. You know, I was just a very small kid. I even remember days, there were times where I would ride to middle school with my younger sister, who was taller than me at the time. And so, you know, I caught a lot of flack from my friends, you know, rolling into school with my little sister who was bigger than me. But, you know, I think that builds a little bit of character. And, you know, once I got to high school, I kind of sprouted up a little bit. But I remember my freshman year, like you said, I was kind of trying to decide if I wanted to continue to play football and baseball because, you know, in middle school, I was kind of between those three. Those are the three in the United States, especially, that we kind of are most popular is, you know, baseball, football, American football, and then basketball. And I was trying to come down to that decision, and I ultimately decided to go with basketball because it was the one for me that I felt like I loved the most. It was easiest to get in the gym every day and really put the work in. It was the one sport that for me, during the other seasons, I would always work on my basketball game in some aspect, ball handling, shooting. And so, you know, that love was there, and I felt like I was making the right decision. And I went up to my high school baseball coach, or what would have been my high school baseball coach, and told him that I was going to make the decision to just go with just straight basketball, that I wasn't going to be playing baseball when I got to high school. And he thought I was making a huge mistake because of my size, obviously. You know, his words, like you said, were, you know, basketball is a tall man's sport, and it's going to be tough for you out there. But I always had faith, you know. My dad was tall, so I was holding out hope, you know, that I would get a little growth spurt there, and then, you know, towards the middle of my high school career, it happened. So.
And it's pretty common for high school basketball players to play in the AAU, which is like a league besides the high school. I think it's crucial for being a successful professional basketball player at the end. How was that for you when you kind of get that feedback that you're maybe not good enough for that sport, you're still opting in there? I think AAU or being on an AAU team is not the most easy part to go there, be accepted, because it's all private. Share your experience with us.
Yeah, AAU was an interesting experience for me. I didn't really have a lot of success as far as fit. I always felt like the AAU teams that I was on, I would say early in my high school career, just didn't really fit my style of play as much. AAU has this kind of stereotype of being a very one-on-one, very individualistic style of basketball. And especially at that time, I was not even close to an individual type of player. I was, you know, a very kind of undersized guard and could shoot it pretty well, but, you know, I needed people to kind of make plays for me. I didn't really have a whole lot of success until probably my junior year. I have a friend of mine, still a good friend to this day, Frank Hanacho, and he invited me to this workout at the Kincaid School. And he told me that TJ Ford went to the University of Texas, played in the NBA, was holding tryouts for just kids in the Houston area. You know, he had just retired from the NBA. He was playing with the Spurs. He wasn't familiar with, you know, kind of the local talent in the area. And Frank invited me to this invite-only workout And I remember going there being, a little bit nervous, of course, being with some of the top high school players in the city of Houston. There's a little ranking that they put out, and especially at that age, kids are so into rankings. I was no different. I was looking at all the names on the list. And
so, what was your spot at the list?
Well, I was not on the list. No, I was not on the list. But I was always, you always kind of try to measure yourself, even at that age, against guys who were on this list. I think the competitive spirit of everyone is just kind of always looking around and trying to be their best. But TJ was kind enough to give me the opportunity to play for his team after I had a pretty good workout. And the knowledge that I learned just even in that summer was, profound. Our assistant coach was actually James Posey, who was, NBA champion with the Celtics. So to have those two guys, as a high schooler, teach you the game of basketball was, invaluable because, those guys have so much knowledge of playing the game at the very highest level. And, here I am at 16, 17 years old with goals to, play at the professional level, and you get to learn from these types of guys. It was an amazing experience.
Usually in junior or senior year, actually more in senior year in high school, you kind of know, do you make, a college, do you get a scholarship? It's kind of like a indicator on where your career paths can lead to. And you said that you didn't have any opportunities to get a scholarship at colleges in your junior year, which is like the third year in high school. How did you deal with that, knowing that you still, put in so much work, maybe more than the other guys, but you already had your setback with the coach from baseball that you cannot make it. Then you're in the situation where maybe other players on your team or people have already their offer for a scholarship, maybe at good D1 colleges.
Something you always have to remember when you're coming up is it's about the process, right? And that was always something for me growing up, that I always wanted to try to put in as much work as I could, because, not knowing what I know now, when you're a kid, it's a little bit, sometimes you can't see through the haze. You can't look into the glass and see through the future, and see that, what you're doing is going to pay off. But you just have to have a little bit of trust and faith that if you give your 100% and everything that you have, whether it happens or not, you can be satisfied with what you put forth. And, for me, that was something, like you said, leading up to my junior season is usually kind of the cutoff for guys to start getting scholarships and, deciding on where they're going to go to university. And when that came around and I didn't have any offers, my mind started to tick around a little bit as far as, okay, well, what do I want to do outside of basketball? I started looking at other schools to apply for, just to be a regular student. It was one thing that it was a little bit unnerving, but I kind of got lucky a little bit with some hard work and some connections that I was able to make to get into the University of Houston.
Because I remember you said that you've been a walk-on, not like a regular player. Can you please explain for the people what a walk-on is? Because I didn't know that before. Also, what the situation with the coach was, expectations, and how that whole life is there.
Yeah, so a walk-on is basically, you have all the responsibilities of a normal student athlete. You come to practice, workouts, treatment, classes, everything is the same. The only difference is that the school the university is not paying for your classes, they're not paying for your books, they're not paying for your housing, you're not getting any stipend checks. I started as a walk-on, and for me this was fine, because at the end of the day, I want to have the opportunity to play. That was my biggest thing.
Because you still saw that you can make it if you put in enough work.
Right. I kind of told myself, if I could buy myself 4 more years to just dedicate that time to getting better, I think I have enough kind of internal drive to turn myself, and with the help of, the college coaches and facilities, to turn myself into a pretty good player. So when that happened, I just wanted to make sure I was taking full advantage of, everything that they had to offer.
So for me, I mean, in Germany, college is kind of not too expensive, but in the States is a whole different thing. Usually people are in debt for maybe a decade or even longer sometimes. And then you take that responsibility of you that you have to pay for all that stuff. Plus you're getting the extra load of being a player, but not really playing. And then maybe having, I mean, you said that you have also some other expectations from the coach on what you need to do besides just being at the training and basketball, practice and playing basketball. So
just a quick backstory of kind of how my whole University of Houston experience started. Like I told you, my AAU coach was TJ Ford, and so he played at the University of Texas, and my college coach at the time, while TJ was at University of Texas, was the coach of University of Oklahoma. So they would have these conference battles, and then actually they both moved to the NBA around the same time. Coach was an assistant for an NBA team, and TJ was playing in the NBA. So they got to be pretty good friends. They would, talk to each other during pregame and on the road and stuff like that. So they had a pretty good relationship. And TJ called me one day, and he told me that there might be an opportunity to get a walk-on spot at the University of Houston. There was a coaching change. That usually means there's going to be a lot of turnover with players, staff, and everyone. So there would be, potential opportunity there. And at this time, it's probably April of 2014. So you graduate in May. So I'm down to, the last month here in high school. I remember going into this meeting with Coach. I was wearing this white kind of button-down tie, like you would go for an interview. And I had this book bag with me with some workout clothes and my basketball shoes. And I just remember obviously being super nervous going in there. I had Wikipedia paged his all his accolades prior to, and what am I walking into here? I remember sitting there, he was at lunch, so we waited a little while, just me and TJ. And he comes in, says hello to TJ, they have a brief back and forth, and then he just walks into his office right to the right. And he says, "Come on in." So I get up, I walk in, and it was a pretty short conversation. I did a lot of listening. There wasn't much talking on my side. He kind of laid down the lay of the land as far as his expectations. And his main expectations were, as a walk-on, you have to be number one in every sprint, every drill, conditioning, weight room. Don't even talk about being late. You have to be the first guy in the gym. Every team event, every team function, you have to be that guy. Your job here is to push those guys. Walk-ons don't play. You might get in there at the end, but you're not here. You're not here to get minutes. You're here to push guys in practice, and that's your role. His second rule was you have to lead our team in grade point average. So you have to take care of your part in the classroom. You have to be on your books. If any guys need help with, any types of problems, we had a tutoring center as well. But if anyone needs any help with anything, that's what you're there to be a good teammate. And his third one was you need to have a car. And if you have a car, that means if anyone needs to go anywhere, if anyone needs something, you're the guy, And so these were all, it's fun. The last one's kind of funny, but these were all rules that I felt that I could follow, I already felt like I could be a great teammate. I was always on top of my books, and then I had a car. So it worked out in my mind. I said, "Coach, I can do that." He said, "Okay, well, we'll have summer classes and summer workouts in June." And so I signed up, and that's how I got started.
I gotta be honest, like that's a lot you gotta be on top of. You know, being best in class of all of your teammates, doing everything they want basically, and then still be the first one showing up and all that stuff. You gotta really be determined to go through all of that, to maybe get the option to play here and there for a couple of minutes and maybe play well in that minute, to maybe, you know, there's so many ifs and whens and stuff like that that I think that really shows how much you really want it. So can you describe how, you know, this first weeks or months of being a walk-on college been for you?
Yeah, first couple weeks were tough. I'm not gonna lie. Anytime there's a new coach in a new situation, he's gonna try to instill his culture. You know, he's gonna set his expectation, and everyone's expectation has to be up to his. You know, he is the bar, and if you don't meet his bar, then, you know, you're out. So, yeah, the first workouts were difficult. You know, we were waking up at 5:30 in the morning to lift weights, and then we had conditioning. After conditioning, and this wasn't, you know, like kind of normal conditioning. I mean, this was Army style conditioning, and the drill sergeant is right there with his whistle. You know, it's not like the strength coach is in charge of the head honcho. He's right here next to us. You know, so it was definitely, for me, it was a difficult experience, but it was so new. I had no prior expectation of what college was like. I was a freshman, so I had nothing to base it off of. I just thought this is just how it is, until I talked to some of my buddies who were at other colleges, and they're, yeah, we're not doing that, you know. And so that's when I kind of, in my mind, I really kind of gained this real respect for Coach, and just how hard and how dedicated he is to not only his craft, but accountability is something that gets preached a lot, but sometimes people don't always act on it. He was always a guy, and still is a guy who constantly is on accountability and holds everyone to the same standard. I briefly remember my freshman year, especially after we would have a team practice or conditioning or whatever the schedule was for the day, going back at nighttime. And during that time, it isn't like it is now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the facilities they have over at the University of now, but it's, you know, it's top-notch stuff. But back in 2014, it was not that way. You know, we had the Hofheinz Arena, and I think our locker room was from, I think Elijah and Drexler had the same locker room as us. You know, it was that locker room
from the
that
80s.
hadn't been renovated since the 80s. And so I remember I would ride my bike over from my apartments late at night, and I would go up, and right next to our Hofheinz Arena was what we called the Alumni Center. And there was this lady, this security guard lady, who she would be sitting at the desk, and I would ride my bike up there, knock on the window. And we got to be pretty good friends because, you know, every night I would, you know, roll up there, and she would kind of smile and come out from behind her desk, and we would, you know, have a little 30-second walk over to the gym. She would pull out all of her keys, open the door, like make this, I mean, it was old, the little sound. And then, you know, I would go in there for, you know, an hour and a half or so, and really try to just work on my game, whatever I felt like I needed to work on that day.
Where did you get the drive from? Because I gotta be honest, the whole experience sounds kind of shitty. It's super, you know, tough. They expect so much more from you specifically than also the other guys. And still, even for them, the bar is very high. And then you still go there at night, trying to work on yourself. Do you know where you got that, you know, drive from?
Man, that's a good question. I think
most people would just, you know, be like, I'm the walk-on. I don't have the greatest perspective on becoming a pro, so why should I put in even more work than I'm already required to put in?
I think I was just a little bit naive in a sense, you know. I always had a pretty good work ethic as a kid, but I didn't know how it would turn out. And so I was always kind of working with this blind faith that if I just kept working, that things would just work out. And it had worked for me, up until this point. Obviously, you have to get a little bit lucky along the way. But up until that point, I always pride myself on doing all the little things, always showing up, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, always showing up and trying to, give your best.
Did you actually enjoy that at the end?
Yeah, that was the thing for me, is for a lot of guys, I think it can be a chore to go to the gym, and
What does it mean?
it can be a little bit tough for some guys to, it's a hard ask for them to show up every day, even when they're tired, back-to-back days. Because, it's easy to do for a week or a month or a year, but can you do it for 3 years? Can you do it for 5? Can you do it for 10? So if you can stack up days and days, and you look back at your body of work, it adds up at the end of the day.
And then there's something in physics, it's called law of conservation of energy, which means you put a certain amount of energy into something, and then it gets, it's equal. There's nothing lost in there. And I think you're talking a lot about sacrifices, and, I assume, and I think if I remember correctly, you also said that you were not the party guy being out, every other, like we know from movies or so how college is supposed to be. You're at the other end, which means you're sacrificing a lot of experience, maybe.
Yeah, you said it. Basically, I kind of made a pact with myself when I was in high school. I wasn't a big party guy in high school either. But like I said, if I could buy myself 4 more years to really work on my game, I was going to use all of that time that I could. And so, I did that to the full extent. I was a little bit sick in the head sometimes, the way I would just go back and forth and just do the same thing. My routine was, it was set in place. So like you said, I probably missed out on some experiences in college that a lot of normal college kids go through. But I think it was well worth the sacrifice, because I know that had I done some of those things and maybe not spent as much time in the gym, or maybe rested a few more days, that, I might not even be sitting in here talking with you right now. So it's just those little things, like we talked about. We talked about atomic habits, and how those little things over a long period of time can change the course of someone's life and stuff like that. And that's something that I really think is true, and something that I really try to live by.
I don't want to take it from you, but what did this lead you to? What was the result of being, in that shitty situation, putting all the work in? What happened in, I guess, junior year, right?
My first few years, I didn't get much playing time. I was, a practice player. I was showing up every day, really trying to put the work in. I would get a few brief game minutes here if the game was set in hand. I was the typical walk-on where I'd come in and I'd try to get him a shot, and but that was not a role that I really wanted to. That was not a role that I wanted to be in. I wanted to have a playing role and stuff like that. So through my hard work and my dedication, I really tried to prove to coach that I was bought in as a player. And beginning of my junior season, in between my sophomore and junior season, we were just finishing up with our summer workouts.
The last day or the last couple of days?
It was the last day of July. So you have 2 summers, or 2 camps, I guess, if you will. June session and then July session. And so we had just got done with July. We had had a good summer. We were happy with the new guys that had come in. We think they had implemented well into the team. And we get done, and they bring out this table, and coach is giving this speech on, how everything in life needs to be earned. Everything that is worth having is something that needs to be earned. And at first I thought it was one of Coach's. Coach has a million of these kind of motivational speeches, and I thought, he's going to reward us with some sort of meal or something after, our hard work in summer session. And so we're all lined up. We're facing Coach in the practice facility. And I just briefly turn my head over my shoulder, and I see my parents walk through the door. And I was just kind of confused at that point. And then I hear him start to talk about kind of hard work, showing up every day. And then it kind of set in that, I was thinking he was probably going to put me on scholarship. And you just kind of start to feel all these waves of emotions start to build up. And he eventually said, we're going to put Wes van Beck on scholarship here at the University of Houston. And all my teammates kind of, bum rushed me and, were hugging me, giving me high fives and telling me congratulations. And, there's no better feeling in the world when you, work for something for so long, and then it kind of comes to fruition right before your eyes. And it's very special to share that with teammates who become brothers at the University of Houston, and then also with my family. So it was a very special day for me, and it's one that I'll always remember.
And then maybe to kind of close up on college, you played March Madness, right, at the end. Yeah. And if you talk about your story from being the walk-on who's barely playing, and also at a team that's barely winning, to a team that's ending up in March Madness, how did, this got to be for yourself a huge accomplishment, and also being part of that team for 2 years, senior year and junior and senior year, which kind of feels like you grew with them. And then also talking about your dad, being a referee, and then you are up there playing. There's got to be a huge, accomplishment for yourself also. And then, like you said, you've been so naive in thinking of you can do that. But when you were asking, the security guard girl if you can go into the arena at nights to practice, that's really far off. And I think, people mostly have dreams that are really far off for them. But if you do all these little steps, like you also said, that Atomic Habits, there's a book about that. It kind of leads up to this. So how felt the whole situation?
Yeah, like you said, when I came into the university, it was a whole flip over. We were getting new facilities, there were new players, we were trying to build our culture. So we didn't win many games that first year, but we had a tough group that first year that I think, never gave up. We always came to practice and worked hard every day. And we had a really fun locker room. That was the one thing that I remember about that team is every day that I would go in there, I would laugh because it was a joy to be around those guys. They were a bunch of positive energy guys. But just, skipping along, going back to my dad, I can remember, I have some of my youngest memories are sitting in my house and watching March Madness games with my dad, with my brothers. We would have March Madness parties and stuff. And so I can remember, watching Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, all the Blue Buds, and then, all the upsets and stuff. And especially as a young kid, you see all that excitement and you're like, I want to be in that. And then to skip ahead, 15 years later, and you have the opportunity to play in this tournament, it was definitely a moment where I had to kind of stop and really look back and be like, wow, this is quite the journey that we've been on here, because here we are, we're about to play San Diego State in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. Here you look 4 years ago and we had won 13 games. And it just goes to show that, it's all about the process. It's all about the long game, the marathon, as they say. And that's something that I think we all kind of embodied at the University of Houston those first few years, was not getting too caught up. Of course, we wanted to win, but not getting too caught up in wins and losses, but just making sure we were building steps to be on the path that we wanted to be.
Which is, I think, kind of similar to how the organization over here is. But so you've been in March Madness, which is a good accomplishment for sure, and you're about to turn pro. There's got to be an exciting time in your life. You get an agent, you maybe even get multiple agents on different continents. How did becoming a pro really worked out for you?
Yeah, it was obviously a brand new experience for me. I didn't even have, like I told you, I didn't have any experience getting recruited out of high school. So, it's just another stepping stone that I needed some help with, kind of just getting into that realm. What do I do? What is an agent? What are next steps? How do I proceed if I want to play overseas, if I want to go to the G League? How does it all work? So I ended up signing with an agent and had my first job in the G League. It was a brief stint with the South Bay Lakers, and I got cut training camp of the beginning of the season. I was the final cut, and I remember going into coach. The coach was Kobe Carl at the time, and I remember going into Coach Carl's office, and he was just basically telling me, this is a tough conversation. These conversations are always tough, but this is just how the business goes sometimes. And he told me he thought that I was gonna end up being a great pro, but that I wasn't a good fit on this team. And so I got my first real experience with kind of real life adversity pretty quickly. Shortly after that, they called me back in March for a few games. So I had an opportunity to kind of relink up with some of the guys that I had gotten close with in training camp and stuff like that. But then after that, it was tough. I was dealing with some injuries at the time, and it was right before COVID was kind of starting. So with everything that was happening, I kind of got just stuck in the middle. And, I look up, and it's been almost 2 years now, and I've played, maybe 3, I guess, professional games at the time, with not a real opportunity to kind of show what I think, what I'm capable of. And that was when I was playing at this gym. We call it downtown at the Met, and we call it the lunchtime crew, because during this time we play at noon, So during this time, there's not very many overseas guys in town. It's a little bit late in the year. I want to say it was probably, it was maybe September or so. So most guys had left overseas or training camp or whatever. And I'm playing with the lunchtime crew, and this guy comes up to me. He said, "Where are you playing these days?"
But who's playing at lunchtime crews? Like older random guys?
Probably, I'm gonna say the average age was probably 35. That's being generous.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
But there would always be a few guys who were either playing in college or were aspiring professionals. So there are always some good guys to go against. But yeah, I remember just playing one day, and this guy comes up to me and asked me where I was playing at. And I said, "Well, nowhere. I'm playing with you right now." And he goes, "Have you ever thought about playing in Colombia?" And I go, "Well, I didn't even know that they played basketball in Colombia." And he was like, "Yeah, I know a guy who they're about to start their season. They have 2 seasons, and you should think about going over there." And so, I didn't know anything about the situation. I had talked to a few of my older, I guess you could call them mentors, and they told me some things about South American basketball, and I decided to kind of take a chance. It had been almost 2 years since I'd left college, and I was anxious to kind of get the process started. I had been doing a lot of working out and not a lot of playing games, so I wanted to take that first step, and I ended up going to Medellin.
Which is actually a longest time if you think about 2 years. You really think about what, how all of us been like 2 years ago and how many things happened in that year, being so patient and, kind of back to college, being naive and think about there might be an opportunity. I mean, you gotta do some regular other jobs to still make some money and, pay the bills, but still try to be in shape, still try to wait for that thing to happen is kind of cool. And I mean, Colombia might not be the first or best destination a lot of people think about to play basketball. I think usually it's more like Europe or Asia. How was Colombia? I only know it from Narcos, so I don't.
Yeah, that's what everyone knows it from. But it was a new experience for me. It was the first time the second we had took a team trip when I was in college to China briefly. But other than that, it was gonna be my first time living in a different country, and so I really had no expectation. I had also seen Narcos, so I was a little bit worried. But once I got there, it was quite the opposite of kind of my expectations. Everyone was very caring, very open. They made me feel very welcome. I made some really good friends there, actually. My first stint wasn't the best. I had a pretty solid game my first game, and then in the second game I ended up breaking my jaw. And so I had to have surgery. I had surgery, I went home, I recovered, and then they wanted me to play the following season. In Colombia, they have these 2 separate seasons, so the following season was the back end of what a normal basketball season would be. And so I agreed to go back and give it another shot. I knew the coach. I knew some of the local players. It was going to be a few new guys, obviously, but I was ready to go back and try to make a name for myself.
Like, I gotta be honest, man, like the struggle is real for you in your life, leading to all that, being the underdog or late bloomer in all of the situations. Like every time you're, a couple of years behind if you want so. But I think we're now coming to the better parts of your professional career. So you played in Spain and Estonia, which are your first European countries you played in. And can you give us a brief summary of how you...
Spain was an easy transition in the sense of, while I was in Colombia, I learned a little bit of Spanish. So the locker room, the communication with not only coaches, but just kind of daily life was a lot easier to kind of slip into. The basketball was my first experience with European style. So from that sense, it was a little bit of a learning curve. But I feel like I got pretty comfortable pretty quick. It also helped that we had a locker room of good guys as well. That always helps. Guys who were there to help me, coaches, trainers, everyone at Palma was very caring, and anything I needed, they were there to help. And so I got done in Spain and signed in Estonia last year. And that was my first real experience where the language barrier really came in. It was the first time I kind of felt isolated a little bit overseas, especially in the beginning. Usually the beginning months for foreign players, or I'm just going to speak for myself, are usually the toughest, just because you go into a brand new place where you usually don't speak the language, you don't know anyone, including your teammates, and you're just trying to get acclimated with everything. You're trying to find a routine pretty quickly so you can get comfortable. Estonia, that was tough in the beginning for me. But then once we got into the games, I mean, we played, I think, 75 games last season. So with the games and the practices, we got into this routine where it was just kind of, next game, next practice. And also, I made some really good friends while I was in Estonia, which, it always helps when you can find people kind of outside the team as well, to just hang out with, go get something to eat, just go over for dinner, play board games, stuff like that. And so those were experiences that I always cherish in Estonia.
And now leading up to Chemnitz, what was your first contact with organization, with coach maybe also? How did the contact happen?
Yeah, so I briefly knew a little bit about the BBL. We had played Bamberg and Karlsruhe the year before. I have some family that lives in Karlsruhe, so Germany was something that was kind of somewhat familiar to me. And then I remember my agent reached out, said that I was going to get a Zoom invite from coach, and I just remember being kind of confused because I had never gotten a Zoom link or anything for a kind of recruiting process, if you will. Any conversation that I've had with a coach has been over the phone, and it's been, relatively short, 5-10 minutes, and that's pretty much it. But with coach, it was not like that. It was and it was just like how he is now. It's everything's detailed, everything's accountability. The link was sent at 4 o'clock or whatever. And I clicked the link and here we go. Yeah.
And I remember from other players I've talked to, they kind of described the whole situation of what he's sharing with you, how he sees you, is so different to all the other teams. So I think he usually prepares like these videos where he not only shows like a highlight tape on what you're good at, but also more like what you could improve, how they can improve it, but also like how you could fit in a team. So how could you describe that experience for you?
I mean, he broke it down very well. He had this whole slideshow set up of, like you said, positive clips, stuff that he liked. He talked to me about style of play. He had previously sent me some games from last year to watch to just kind of get a feel for the pace that they played at, kind of the schemes that they ran, the style of play, things like that. And so I watched that. So I went into the meeting already thinking that it would kind of be a good fit for my style of play. And, he just kind of broke down stuff from last game, like you said. And then there was a little bit of a back and forth as far as, stuff that he might think I need to improve on. He was very receptive with that. He gave me some good pointers. And overall, I just got the sensation that he was a coach that was really going to try to help me improve. And that was the main thing for me, is I want to continue to improve. I want to continue to get better. And, when I talked with him and Julian, it was an easy decision for me, because I felt like these guys are on it. They have everything, all the facilities needed to provide me to improve my game. We're going to have a good, solid team around us, and we're going to play the right way. We're going to play hard, play tenacious, and we're going to get after it. And these were some of the things that I was looking for in a team.
So you're signing a contract. You're coming to Chemnitz, and you said that being in Estonia, a foreign language or a language where you don't have any experience compared to Spanish in Colombia or Spain. How was that kind of culture shock to you, not knowing the language at all, not knowing anybody over here? What was the first Chemnitz experience? Because most of the guys say that, especially when they left, that this was their favorite city, favorite club to play in, because of all the people around them and how they care and how they, are. So how was you coming here, your first days or weeks?
First days were, like I said before, it's just trying to get acclimated. You're just trying to find some sort of a routine. I drove around the city. I remember some of the first few days I walked the city center with Jeff Garrett. We walked around the mall and went to the city center for a while. And, I just remember my first thoughts were, it's a very nice city. And, obviously the Feel Good Club is a place where we spend the majority of our time. And, they have a great facility there. They have everything that we need to improve. And then the point that you just said about the fans was something that surprised me the most. But I actually had a buddy when I was telling him I was thinking about signing in Chemnitz. The first thing he said was, "Their fans are crazy." That was the first thing he didn't say anything else. I said, "Yeah, I think I'm thinking about signing the BBL with Chemnitz." He goes, "Wow, their fans are crazy. We played in Champions League qualifiers last year, and they had a whole section. I mean, it was wild." And so that was one thing that, as soon as I got here, and of course, from the moment that I stepped foot, I could feel the love from the fans. It's true passion here, and it's definitely the most passionate fan base that I've played for. And you can feel it immediately. With when you step on the court, the first game, with that home crowd of people who really care about the team and really want to see you guys do well. And on the flip end, all we want to do is just make them feel proud. So we want to go out there and show them a good product, and they want to see it succeed. So it's pretty even.
But I gotta say that I think the big difference to the fans over here is that even if you're not playing well, they still support you, because that's what I've heard, especially from people playing in Italy, for example. When you're not doing that well, they boo you, second, third, fourth quarter, like straight all the time. Their home team, their own team, because they're not satisfied with them. And I think that's a huge difference to the people over here, that they still support you. They still want to, it's not so much about succeeding, but just, being part of this also. So what would you say, what's possible in the next 6 to 8 months for the team, for you?
Yeah, I think, it's like we talked about pretty much this whole hour, is just trusting our process and continuing to show up every day and trying to get better. We understand that the season is long and every season is filled with ups and downs, and you just have to try to stay level-headed and continue to work to get better every day. Coach always says we want to make our fans proud. That's our number one goal when we step on the court, is just try to, play our hardest and put a good product forth. And obviously we want to be very competitive as well. We want to win games. We want to finish top 4, like Coach says, in our European Cup and the BBL. And so we have aspirations to definitely win, but we know that none of that stuff is possible if you don't, show up in the gym and put in the work every day.
Thank you for taking the time and, talking about your whole life and how you kind of dealt with all the adversity you already had. I mean, there are so many ups and downs in your life, and so many, oh shit, you might be on, the edge of not making it, but you're still here being a professional basketball player. And I gotta say, like, the first couple of games we saw been pretty solid, if you want to put it that way. Is there anything you want to say to the people in here, to the people watching the video?
No, I think I would just say to the people that came today, thank you guys for showing up. This has been a real cool experience. First time in kind of a live setting, so this has been fun. To the people watching at home, thank you for watching. I hope you, enjoyed the conversation and could pick up maybe a tidbit, about something, whatever it could be. I think a lot of what we talked about today is applicable in, day-to-day life, no matter kind of what you're doing, what line of work you're in. All this kind of resonates with everyone. I think we've all dealt with different levels of adversity, and anytime you can, talk with someone about ways to overcome that adversity and getting better at, dealing with adversity is always a good thing. So thank you for watching.
Yeah, so again, thank you for being here. Also, thank you to the Tomino for giving us a space to do something like that. First time ever with a live crowd, which is, I gotta be honest, I was really scared of doing this because there are so many people and then it's a foreign language and stuff like that. So thank you also to Atomino for having us. To everybody who's here, there are more people here than we thought gonna show up. But also thank you again to the arena and the messe, because that's something I think I never really said. We shot all the other episodes there. They gave us access every single time. And I just want to say thank you, because without them we wouldn't have that opportunity also. So thank you to everybody also watching it on YouTube, and see you on the next one.